week.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the SuperCoach AFL live show with Paton here and joined by my weekly co-host Matt Forrest. Matt, welcome. Round 3 starts tonight.
Hey guys, how's it going? Yeah, it's very exciting. I love these Thursday night games. It's it just shortens your week, gives you a longer weekend, even though we're working tomorrow. But it's great to have footy on the TV. I can't wait.
And joining us tonight, another special guest from the SuperCoach team, Chloe Williams. Are you pumped for Port versus Essendon? It's maybe not the blockbuster the AFL might have thought it was when they planned the fixture out, but a few interesting SuperCoach names at least.
Yes, definitely. It's actually the first time so far that I haven't been at the footy on a Thursday night, but I'm very excited not to be there this week, actually. I think I need a bit of relief from that to start off my footy week.
You get 1 day's reprieve before the Blues are in action, but the teams are in, so we'll go through them shortly and keep an eye out for the subs should be in for tonight's game too anytime soon. So we'll try and bring those to you, but it may as well start sharing. There we go. And have a look at the teams for tonight's game. So we've got Essendon and Port Adelaide, of course, and really from a SuperCoach point of view, the interest I think is in the rookies, and that is primarily Saad El Hawley getting a game for the Bombers. So hopefully it's not the sub. We'll find out in a second. And obviously Sardis is out for at least, 1 week or two if you count the fact that the Bombers have the bye next week. So that's an interesting question whether you hang on to him, given that he's got a decent role there. Looks like he could make us some money, but won't be for a couple of weeks at least. And just quickly scanning over the Port Adelaide team, few changes there, but I don't think there's anything huge there that catches our interest from a SuperCoach point of view. But Matt, what can you tell us about Saad El Hawley?
Very exciting run and carry sort of play. Use it quite well by foot. It'll be interesting to see whether he gets a wing rotation or if he's playing off one of the half, other half forward or half back flank. He's in the VFL, his VFL career, he has been that sort of winger, half back flanker. So hopefully you can get that half back role, help out Andy McGrath and Dylan Shield, who are currently sort of the kick out takers and the distributors off half back for the Bombers. But I feel like he'll suit the Marvel Stadium. It's pretty, fast and zippy ground, and hopefully you can get a decent role that's not sub-affected. I want to see him play full 120 minutes, please.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. And obviously he was one of the most popular picks in SuperCoach at the start of the year, and then a lot of us obviously took him out when we saw that he wasn't named in the first round or two. But he could be really handy for us coming in at this time. So hang on. He's the sub. So,
God damn it.
The two debutants, him and Tom Cochrane for Port, also are the two subs tonight. So, yeah, that's just an absolute what are they doing there, Bombers? Come on, please. But I guess we'll get to have a look at, how if he gets on the ground and have a couple of weeks to see how he goes. But
what a flattening way to start the podcast.
Exactly. That's shocking. But that has left me a bit flat, I have to say. But we've got some teams for Friday night as well. So a couple of changes. Oh, geez, we're not off to a good start here because Lucas Campriali's been dropped. So he's on my bench. So whether I take a look at whether I keep him in or not, I don't know. What do you think, Chloe? You're the Blues expert. Is he going to come back anytime soon?
Well, look, I was not expecting him to be dropped, so I can't provide too many expertise there. I would hope that he does come back in soon because I thought he'd been pretty decent so far. But, Carlton do have some other players on the horizon in coming weeks, so maybe it's a bit of a writing on the wall for him. But I would love to see him come back in the team, but that might mean that, in the meantime, he will have to come out of my SuperCoach team.
Yeah. They probably don't want guys in who aren't playing. It's not a good sign, but I didn't think he was too bad in the first couple of games. But Brendan Evans comes back in. A couple of changes there at the Blues now. What have the Doggies done? Nothing I don't think that's going to hurt us too much in SuperCoach. Liam Jones will be a big inclusion for them, but Arthur Jones and Taylor Duray go out. So, it's just a matter of whether one of these young kids gets the sub vest. But I think the Doggies are looking pretty clean for us in a SuperCoach point of view. But what do you anything you can spot there, Matt, that we should be taking notice of?
Nothing super exciting. We've obviously seen Joel Frazier play a variety of different roles. He's been great this year, but it'll be interesting to see those defenders that are coming in, Liam Jones and obviously James O'Donnell, to play, whether that affects him, whether he pushes further up the ground. He's obviously been named on ball. We know that Bevo doesn't usually stick to whatever he names the team as. So whether he plays half back or if he is further up the ground, it'll be interesting to see what that structure sort of looks like.
Yep, absolutely. So, and Chloe, before we go off this game, are the Blues going to get a win?
Oh, it's a tough question. You can only hope. I've come to the point where I think that it should be possible, but at the end of the day, how much faith do I have left? Not a lot. Am I going to tip them still? Yes, but that's probably why I'm doing pretty poorly in my tipping this year. So let's just say yes for the sake of my hope, really.
All right, now into the first game on the Saturday. I think we've got the Demons playing Gold Coast at the G, and a few changes here at Melbourne with Stephen May back. Ian Johnson comes back in. Jack Billings gets a game. Jake Melksham's back. Haven't seen him yet this year. And Harvey Langford back in. So the outs are who we're looking at. So none of the popular Supercoach rookies listed in the outs. So that's a big positive. It's just a matter of, can they dodge the sub-vest? But it really looks like, the likes of Jack Henderson named on the ground. Obviously, Xavier Lindsay's a really popular Supercoach pick this week. Those rookies for the Ds both named in the starting 18. So positives for us there. Are you picking up both of those guys, Matt, or if you didn't have them already?
Already got Xavier Lindsay. I've traded in Jack Henderson this week, so we'll see. Obviously, named on field is really positive. There aren't many guys that are named as a sub on field, but I think, Xavier Lindsay has shown his worth so far, and Henderson's been really valuable in that half forward. So definitely, if you don't have them, I'd be going after them.
Yeah, no, they're both coming in for me as well. And pick the right screen here. If we go back to the Suns, so we haven't seen them obviously for a couple of weeks because of the bye, and I don't think too many of us have Gold Coast players in Supercoach, to be honest. But the notable name there is Sam Flanders is in for his first game of the season. Most expensive defender, and he's named at full forward. Looking at that, so we'll see where he lines up. It's a bit of a question mark now that obviously they've got Dan Rioli and Noble back there at halfback, but we'll see what Dimba does with him. But we get a couple of weeks to look at him before thinking about potentially, if we upgrade season, he could be a guy we could look at. But maybe not if he's playing full forward. We'll see what they actually do. And the next game that day, obviously over at Marvel, where Richmond loves to play at Marvel against the Saints, who have made two changes. Hunter Clark's injured. I don't even say what that is, but that's just sort of a perennial thing with Hunter Clark. And we get Cooper Sharman and Toby Travalia comes in for his debut. So another popular preseason Supercoach pick. We finally get a look at him, but a couple of other cheapies there for the Saints. Garcia keeps his spot after being the sub last week. I'm traded him out, and I think I probably have to stick with that given his poor scores and the fact that he's sort of 250K. But Jack Sinclair named in the centre is interesting, and Isaac Keeler in the back pocket. But he didn't score too much on debut last week. But a couple of names in the emergencies there for Supercoaches too, just to keep us on the hook with Sean Maker and Harry Boyd, even though I suppose they always put a rucker in the emergencies. But I've been toying with bringing in a Jack Sinclair this week, Chloe, given the Saints usually go pretty well at Marvel, and Richmond gives up a lot of points to midfielders and defenders. But I think Nazaya and Jack could both go really well this week. But what are your thoughts on the Saints team?
Well, Jack Sinclair, he's not one that I have necessarily considered myself, but you might have sold me with your captain's article today. Might have to consider Sinclair instead of Lockie Whitfield, who I was going to target. But no, happy with that team there. I would just say, the interchange, bit of a watch to see who will be the sub. Garcia, Travalia, Hall. I'm sure we would not want to see any of them starting as the sub, but it is a live possibility for all of them to either be the starting sub or to be eventually subbed out. I'm kind of keen to see what sort of role Travalia will play too. So, that should bring a bit of excitement to that game. Yeah, it definitely gives us something to watch. And, I forgot about Max Hall. He's in my team too. So, I'll be watching closely. And Liam O'Connell even is in a few teams. But surely as a defender, they're probably not going to make him the sub, but doesn't score a heap of points. But should he stay in for a while after his heroics last week? And over to the Tigers, Tom Lynch is back after that 1 week suspension. Actually scored okay in the first game. But, with the forward rookies the way they are, we probably don't need him at the moment. But we'll see how we goes in game 2. Tyler Sonsi comes back in. Forrest unlucky to go out. I guess they had to drop one of those young
key forwards to get Tommy Lynch back in, and Banks has concussion. So as it turns out, the Tigers haven't been huge for us in SuperCoach, despite all the rookie possibilities there. Sam Lawler, should say, named in the forward pocket. But Jaden Short, halfback. Halfbacks do score well against St Kilda traditionally. Matt, did you start Jaden Short? And what would you advise Jaden Short owners like Chloe, who might be a little bit annoyed with how he's gone so far?
I didn't start him, thankfully. I think these guys that are around that 400 to 500 mark in the back line, there are so many guys of really good quality. So if you're not totally convinced, I'd be looking to move sideways or even potentially downgrade if you've missed a rookie. You might be losing a couple 20, 30 points a week on that, but then it gives you the cash to upgrade elsewhere around the rest of the ground. So it depends on what your structure it looks like. It could go a couple of different ways, but I know that Al, you're looking to bump up to an Uber premium, and but others, you could go either way with it, really.
Yeah, just wary of having too many of those cheap defenders. But you make a point that I would say Connor O'Sullivan probably outscored Short last week, so you're not really losing anything by doing that, and you're going a fair bit of cash. So that is an option you could consider as well. Now there's 2 Saturday night games, and or have we got? Yeah, that's right. And so we've got Hawks versus GWS. So just the one change there, Connor McDonald out, and he'll miss a couple of weeks. And Luke Bruce, the super sub, comes in. And for the Giants, now this is interesting because they had, I think, all those guys who were suspended at the end of last year were available this week, plus a few coming back potentially from injury. So they've just got the 3 injury sort of players coming in, the starters. Jake Stringer gets his first game at the Giants. Jesse Hogan and Kieran Briggs is back after his shocking concussion a couple of weeks ago. So that was resulted in a very low score in Supercoach. So maybe give him a couple of weeks and he'll be pretty cheap. But whether we can find a way to him in the ruck might be a saviour for people who have Matt Flynn there if we wait and see whether he's getting a game or not. And the omissions are James Leake is one of them, which is probably not a huge shock given his form in the first couple of rounds. But Connor Stone has survived, at least in the 23, so there's a positive for us in Supercoach. But Chloe, do you think we'll see James Leake again anytime soon?
Unfortunately, I don't think so, unless, there's some sort of major injury crisis. But it was good while it lasted. I'm someone who's looking to get Riley Bice next week, not this week, so it might work out pretty well for me there. But no, I'm not really expecting to see him back in the side anytime soon.
Yep. We just skipped through the Hawks there, Matt, but was there anything that caught your eye as a Hawks expert?
Not really. Luke Bruce in for Connor McDonald was the obvious one. I think Jack Gunston will probably play in the starting 22, and Bruce will be the sub, which is something that was really popular last year. But no real surprises there.
Yeah, so Carl Amon is one of the top scoring defenders so far. If you're looking for a pod, the other Saturday night game is Brisbane and Geelong. Now, the thing to note about this is that they're forecasting about 2 metres of rain up in Queensland over the next couple of days. So whether that will affect conditions at the Gabba, we'll wait and see. But I'd say it might be a pretty wet, sort of high stoppage kind of game. So whether that would favour maybe a Josh Dunkley type. But a couple of changes there. Charlie Cameron's back, Kai Loman's back. McLaughlin, I should say, who actually scored it right in his debut last week, is out. Connor McKenna's out. So, our sort of cheapies are pretty safe there. Levi Ashcroft looks like he's safe in the team for the time being. And certainly some great Supercoach options there, as we know. Lockie Neal bouncing back last week, and Geelong does tend to give up scores around the midfield, but whether the conditions affect that, we'll wait and see. And over at the Cats, Mark O'Connor's out. I had a little got my breath there for a second. I thought they dropped Connor O'Sullivan, but it was actually Mark O'Connor, and in is Bailey Smith. So yeah, that's a pretty big one. But and Tom Stewart there as well. So they've named both of them. How confident are we, Chloe, that they'll both actually take the field? Given this is Geelong, who are as prone to a late change as anyone.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't fill you with a whole load of confidence. Definitely could be a late out on the horizon, but I don't own Stewart. I own Smith, though. Happy owner after the first round, not so much last week. So, yeah, I'm really hoping that he does play because I missed those points last week, even though it was best 18. I obviously was hoping that he'd get a good score that would help to push my best 18 score up a bit higher than it ended up. So fingers crossed for that one, but no guarantee.
Reading the tea leaves there, Matt, would you be prepared to take a stab if you think Bailey's going to be running out. We saw some footage from training today where he had a fair bit of tape all over his legs. I don't know if that means anything.
I think it's probably more likely that Stewart misses over Smith, just with the cautiousness of Geelong. He also is someone who will play through injury, Tom Stewart. He's a very tough sort of character down there. So I think he would definitely try to, but in the wet, with a lingering knee problem is probably not the ideal conditions for him. So I'd be looking at the bench. Mark O'Connor and Mitch Duncan are the obvious ones the emergencies. They're the two obvious emergencies to come in for those two if they miss. But Ollie Wiltshire named as the final emergency, kicked 3 goals for last week in the VFL as a small forward, played down at Barwon Heads in the Bellarine League for a couple of seasons. Absolute star at the local level, so it'd be quite a shock to get him into the AFL system straight away.
Another one that Geelong's been hiding away down there. They're very good at that. All right, so we've got 2 games on Sunday with obviously we haven't even really mentioned yet, but Collingwood and Sydney on the bye. So certainly in SuperCoach, a few of us have players from those teams, a few Swans in backlines especially, but yeah, you can use those blue dots for loopholing for captains and things, so that's always handy. And obviously best 18 scoring, as Chloe alluded to. But Billy Dowling, SuperCoach favourite, certainly of our friends over in the Lair in South Australia but extended bench there for the Crows. Sid Draper again sitting on there, but all the names we want to see on the field. And at the Kangaroos, a few ins as well. I don't know who's on the extended bench there. Nothing that's going to make us too nervous. I don't think Constanti potentially, but things looking pretty clean for us in that game. Finn O'Sullivan named on a wing. Anything that I'm missing there, Chloe?
No, I think both of those teams would be quite happy with how they performed last week. I don't really see them change much up from last week, so probably as expected for them.
Yeah, no, that's actually shaped as a pretty good game based on last week's form. They're both pretty exciting, high-scoring sort of matches. So, looking forward to that one. And then we finish with the Derby, of course, over in WA. And now I noticed an interesting name on the ins there for West Coast, Chloe, on the extended interchange. Now, it's always hard to read with these rucks because teams always name a spare ruckman on the extended bench on Sunday, and then usually they drop into the emergencies because they like to have a ruckman in the emergencies just in case something happens, to the main ruckman on game day, and you've got someone there who can come in. But, Bo Allen's another interesting inclusion there too. But, could they play 2 rucks? I thought Bailey Williams was actually pretty good last week, but then he went off, cramped up, and had to get subbed out. And then Archer Reid was, really battling as well. So I'm almost surprised that he's made it into the team this week. So that doesn't make your job any easier when trying to figuring out what to do with Matt Flynn, does it?
No, it doesn't. I was really hoping to see him named on field because, as you said, it doesn't necessarily mean a lot to see him on the extended bench. So I guess I'll just have to keep waiting and hoping, but it does not fill me with a lot of confidence. I'm starting to think maybe I should back out and just jump off him now. But, we do have Briggs on the horizon, so I'll give it one more week and we'll see. But definitely not something that fills you with confidence seeing him there on the extended bench rather than named on the field.
Yeah, I guess Bailey Williams is still their number 1 ruck according to that. So that sort of gives you an indication of how they ranked them over there. But, it is still a little bit confusing. And over at the Dockers, Brandon Walker out injured, and that's pretty much it as far as we can tell. And there should be some pretty good scores here, you would think, when it comes to SuperCoach in the last game of the round, which leads in nicely to our next segment, which is, of course, Best Bets, powered by Better. Matt, do you want to kick us off? Because I think Chloe and I are both looking at that at the Derby, but what have you got for us?
Yeah, I'll start Thursday night footy. That's what we've got tonight. So I know I had a winner last week, as you guys recall.
You did remind me of that.
I was pretty happy with that. So I'm going to stick with the players to kick goals, and I've got Willie Rioli tonight to kick 3 at $2.90. I also really like him to be the leading goal scorer tonight as well at $5. So they're my 2 favourite bets. The reasoning is that Essendon has conceded an average of 11.5 goals per game to start the season against small forwards. So I sent you guys some stats during the day, but some of the names were Nick Watson and Dylan Moore for 3, Blake Hardwick, Jack Ginnivan for 2 in round 1, and then last week Josh Rochelle kicked 4, Ben Keys kicked 4, Rankin kicked 2 in 3/4, and Neil Bullen also had 2. So, Willie Rioli, I imagine, will be matched up on Andy McGrath, and I just reckon he'll kick a bag.
Yeah, no, I like that. And you look at Port's forward line, if they're going to kick a decent score, they've got a few forwards missing. They're still trying to figure out how that all works. So there's not a lot of obvious names there who are going to, jump in and kick a bag. So Willie's as good a chance as any. He did have a few centre bounces last week against Richmond, but did manage to still kick a few goals. So, I reckon you're onto something there. And I was, obviously looking straight to that derby based on any team playing West Coast. And we look at some of the numbers that they've given up to midfielders this year. Last week, Neil had 35 touches, Zorko 28, Berry 26, Ashcroft 24. And in round one, Noah Anderson had 36, Matt Rowell 30, Tuke Miller 26. So I think any of those Freo mids to get a fair bit of the pill is a pretty good bet. And I looked at some of the most popular names, and I wasn't seeing fantastic odds there. But Nathan O'Driscoll, you can get $3.40 for him to have more than 25. It's $1.55 for 20 plus if you just want to play it safe. But he's had 25 touches in each of the first 2 rounds. So, he's been a great pick for us, obviously, in SuperCoach, one of the must-have rookies. If you don't have him this round before the prices go up, he's going to have a massive price bump this week. But, I think he could be a pretty good bet there. 25 touches or more, $3.40. But you might have something even better from that game, Chloe.
Yes, well, 40 plus disposals is often hard to come by, but Andrew Brayshaw is paying $10 for 40 plus disposals in the Derby. Round 23, he did manage to break 40 plus. It was round 23 last year, and he got 36 disposals the last time against the Eagles. So it's a bit of an occasion this time round. I think you could almost lock him in for that one. So, if you're looking for a bit of some higher odds there, then that one's paying $10. So jump on. Hopefully better than putting money on Carlton with the flag.
What is gambling really costing you? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen, 1-800-858-858, or visit gamblinghelpline.org.au. Now we have time for a few questions before we get into some captaincy talk. And your stat there might lead me towards Andy Brayshaw, who's been okay the first couple of rounds for me, but hasn't put up a really big score, but hoping this is the week. So see if we've got a couple of questions that we can put up before tonight's game and before we sign off. Yes, just a comment really from Lauren and Scott talking about Jason Horne-Francis. I totally agree. After, yes, we won't go through the whole backstory again, but I didn't have him in my SuperCoach team for most of the summer, but I caved in with about a week to go and thought I can't leave him out, and he has not repaid the faith at all. So I reckon he's a decent chance tonight against the Bombers if he can just stay off the angry pills, not give away too many free kicks and 50-metre penalties would be nice. Now, James here asking, is it worth a boost to go from Hasty to Henderson? So we did see Hasty in the emergencies for the Saints, but only played the one game and he's dropped out. I've got him sitting there, and I don't think you want rookies who aren't playing. Sometimes it's hard to know in the early part of the season. They can come back in, but I don't have any issues using a boost this week. I think you want to get these rookies, and Jack Henderson is one of the ones that I think we need to get before the prices change, especially given his low price. He can make a lot of money, even if he's only in there for 2 or 3 more weeks. You could get $100,000 in that time. So I'd give that a tick. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I think that the going into round 3 is the most important week for SuperCoach. It sets up your whole season. You've still got another 22 weeks of footy to come. And so getting those rookies, the guys who are going to make the money for your team throughout the course of not the whole year, but the next 10 weeks, really, ideally, would be great. So getting that solid foundation of cash generation now, then you can supplement it later with, going into mid prices or premiums that are performing well a little bit later down the track.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Shorty Man there echoing those thoughts. But Chloe, if you couldn't afford or didn't have enough trades to get Xavier Lindsay and Jack Henderson, who would you take? Question here from Manta.
Well, I'm in that position currently, and I'm taking Xavier Lindsay just for that added job security. I love Jack Henderson's role and his price point, but I just think that Lindsay's probably a bit more locked in their best side, and just for that on-field scoring role as well. But feel free to talk me out of that one because I'm in the same position.
No, I think you made the right call there. I think Henderson is probably more of a risk to potentially be the sub or, might get dropped out of the team, whereas Lindsay's just seems like he's got a much more secure role, and you're paying a little bit more money, but he's looked fantastic in the first couple of weeks. So, I think you're doing the right thing there. I'd back this one as well. You mentioned Andy McGrath before. Matt, I didn't think too many people picked him in SuperCoach, but if you did, would you be jumping off now? Hunter Lawrence is asking whether you should swap him to Bailey Dale.
Yep, get him out of your side. I don't know why you started him. I know he's a little sidekick merchant and collects plenty of the pill that way, but defensively, I don't know what Essendon's doing. They're just leaking goals, and I know that doesn't affect your SuperCoach scores, but yeah, he's Bailey Dale also is a disposal merchant, will just rack up the pill, but also is involved in really aggressive attacking thrusts and sets up goals and sets up scoring chains. So I'd be looking to get him definitely. Yeah,
no, I like him a lot. Still on the Bulldogs here, question from Steezus asking whether to trade Reid or Trainer to get Joel Frazier in, who's turned up in his first couple of games. I mean, I'm a Frazier owner, and I'm still not 100% sure. Like, I'm glad I started him, but I don't know if I'd be trading him in just because he's been on about 30 at halftime in both games and then had massive second halves. So I guess you can, glass half full or glass half empty, you can look at that, whether it means he's a bit unreliable or, it shows he finds ways to score. But he's definitely going to go up in price, and, you'd rather have him on field than one of these rookies. And I mean, either of those guys, I think they're both named this week. They're going to get the third game, but it's going to be pretty, small cash generation, and you really only want them on the bench. So if it's a way of getting an extra defensive rookie off the field, maybe if you had a Ben Paton or a James Leake, you'd trade them first because they're not playing. But I wouldn't have any issue with getting rid of either of those guys. I think there's not too many other questions there. I mean, Connor O'Sullivan, Chloe, maybe we'll finish on him, or we'll get thoughts from both of you guys, whether you think he's one we have to grab this week. Is an interesting question because I think some of these midfielders like a Lindsay and a Henderson, if you don't have a Levi Ashcroft or an O'Driscoll there, guys, we're sort of advocating just find a way to trade to get them in. Connor O'Sullivan, not quite as obvious. I mean, he played really well last week, as I said, scored 88. In the Cats' defence, he's a little bit more expensive. But, you think certainly bought himself a couple more weeks at least, can make money, should score okay. He's going better than most of our defensive rookies. But then we do have a Riley Bice coming along next week. He was, just awesome last week for the Swans. Obviously, he doesn't play this week because of the bye. But if you can sort of just hold off on that issue and fix the other ones this week, then Bice could be a really nice little solution for us in the back line. But, maybe O'Sullivan's one that we need to grab as well.
Yeah, I'm not grabbing O'Sullivan this week. Once again, feel free to talk me out of that one. But I just think, you've got Bice coming next week. Potentially we get to have a look at Travalia and Al Hawley this week.
That's true.
Well. And I feel like O'Sullivan really boosted his scoring last week once Tom Stewart was off the ground. So I'm not 100% sold on him as I am with someone like a Xavier Lindsay. And, as you said, at the end of the day, it's most likely that both Trainer and Reid are still playing for now. So in terms of actually swapping them out, I would probably keep them. But if you were moving to look on one of those more dead one of those more dead rookies that are on your bench, then potentially grab Connor O'Sullivan. But it really depends how the rest of your team's going. Like if you've already started a Lindsay and an Ashcroft and a Henderson, and you've got no other issues, then feel free. But personally, I just don't have the capacity to make that trade. But I'm not feeling like I'm missing out greatly on that one personally.
Can you how familiar are with Connor down the highway there, Matt? You've got pretty good intel on those Cats kids.
Yeah, I mean, I really like him as a player. I know the Cats do as well. They sort of see him as this Mark Blitzarves 2.0, but I think long-term as a SuperCoach selection, I don't love him. I'm not getting him. I just think Jake Kolodjasny is due back for the Cats in the next couple of weeks, and he is a best 22 player. They've got Jed Hughes as that sort of smaller player as sort of defender as well, who's not in the side. He's sort of on the fringe, and I can't imagine he'll play a lot of footy this year. But they certainly want to get games into O'Sullivan, and I think this year he's probably good for 10 to 12 games at the very minimum. But I just think that he's going to go from a lockdown to a floater to probably further up the ground. He might start some games in the forward half. They'll try and figure out what his best role is because he is super versatile, which probably helps him get games. But I also think that with Sam De Koning in the ruck, there's a very good chance that they'll push him back and play Reece Stanley at times, and that'll affect his job security as well. So I think, if you've got Leake, I'd be looking at holding him a week if you can. Riley Bice next week, Toby Travalia or Sardell Hawley the week after. There's definitely guys who are coming in who are going to be better for job security, I think, in the long term than O'Sullivan, who is a fantastic player, but I just think he might be a bit hit and miss in the next sort of 2 months.
What about a guy quickly that we didn't mention, Ted Closey, who's named in the final spot on the bench? If that you read anything into that for the Cats on Saturday night, but he looked great on his. He was subbed on last week, but scored in the 80s in SuperCoach. So he could be one that we look at in a week or two potentially to grab. Well, next week I guess he'd be on the bubble. So is he one should be watching closely on Saturday?
Yeah, he's a fun one. I really like him. He's a very tenacious sort of footballer. He's played 4 games. He's been sub-affected all 4. So that's one thing to note. I think if there are some late changes with Stewart coming out or Smith coming out, I think Mark O'Connor or Mitch Duncan will come in and probably play the sub role, which would give Closey a chance to get a full 120-minute game into him. But he's saying that if the team stays as it is, the subs role is probably his. Jack Bowes might take it off him, but I wouldn't be trading in Closey expecting him to play a full game just yet.
Yeah, he's a mid-forward and pretty cheap. So, fingers crossed he does get a decent run. Could be a handy one for us. But, nice to see there's still some rookies coming through the pipeline. We stress so much in round 1 of who gets picked and who doesn't get picked. But we need them the following rounds as well. So, that's good to see some names, as you say, a Travalia in 2 weeks, that kind of thing. Sado Hawley, hopefully get some decent game time. So we'll be watching him closely tonight. We better wrap up because that game starts in about half an hour's time. Unfortunately, Sado Hawley is the sub if you missed that news, but still we'll be cheering him on when he gets a chance. So thanks for jumping on, everybody, for watching. Thanks, Matt, again, and Chloe for being part of the show this week. Good luck, everybody, with your trades and with your SuperCoach team this week, and we'll catch you again soon.